So chapter 2, verses 17 onwards. Paul is writing to the Roman church, and now he is pointing fingers at them where he says, now you, if you call yourself a Jew, if you rely on the law and boast in God, if you know His will and approve of what is superior because you are instructed by the law, if you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those who are in the dark, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of little children, because you have in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth, you then who teach others, do you not teach yourself? So it's a long-winded statement where he says he is pointing his finger at certain people in the Roman congregation, in the church in Rome, and he's saying, you who call yourself a Jew. And when they call themselves a Jew, they are actually meaning all of these things. When they are saying, I'm a Jew, they are actually saying, I know His will, I approve of what is superior because I'm instructed by the law. I'm convinced that I'm a guide for the blind, a light for those who are in the dark, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of little children. These are statements that they attribute to themselves because they are Jews, okay? So they are saying we are Jews and therefore this is what we think of ourselves. So when you look at this, Paul is right against them against their boastfulness. So he is going on saying, you rely on the law and boast in God. You know, why are they boasting? Somehow they think that God is for them and them alone. And they are thinking He gave the law only to them and not to other people. If God will reveal His law and His statutes to them, made a covenant with them, that makes them feel very special, and they think we are someone exclusive. And this boastfulness is innate in human beings. We know that, right? So we always tend to boast about things. You know, we can boast about our accomplishments, but somehow we even boast about things that we have no right boasting about, for things that we receive for free. You know, when God made this relationship possible, was it because they were so very godly that He said, no one else is godly, and therefore I'm going to relate with you? If that were the case, they could boast. If they were so very pious and pure, they were like God, and therefore God said, I'm going to make a covenant with you when no one else on earth is worthy of that covenant, maybe they could boast about that. But we need to understand this is the same scenario for us. We know God not because we are worthy to know God, not because we deserve to have this relationship with God, but because He is gracious. It is not we who deserve it. It's He who makes Himself available to us. So the Jews did not understand that. They thought if God is relating with us, that means that we are someone special. You get this? And this is what Paul is saying. And look at the way that they are talking about themselves. They are saying we know His will, we know the knowledge and truth. And look at all of these things. You know, it's almost like Paul is laughing at them, and he is saying you are the guide for the blind, light for those in the darkness, instructors of the foolish, teachers of children. And you know, it's almost like Paul is lifting them up, you know, giving them all these epithets and then pulling them down, dropping them right back to the ground where he says, you cannot boast. You know, this is the boastfulness that was there in the Jewish people. And we need to understand this. If we have a relationship with God, that is something to cherish, something that we should consider it a privilege, but never something that we boast about. Someone who does not have a relationship with God is not inferior to you because they, you know, are not in any way lesser human beings than you are. You had the privilege of knowing Him. You had the privilege of accepting, receiving that grace when someone else did not. So that makes you much more of a responsible person rather than a boastful person. You know, because most of us, we pat ourselves on the back. We say, oh, you know what, God has done this for me, God has done that for me. Maybe I'm so very special because He has not done that for other people. But the point is, if you have a privilege, if you stand on a higher plane, that makes you much more responsible rather than, you know, where you can pat yourself on the back and say that I am boasting. You know, look at this. They are relying on the law and boast in God. So they are relying on the law. They are talking about the law as though it's a great thing and it's been given to us. But what is happening? Look at verse number 23, where he says, you boast in the law, but you dishonor God by breaking the law. They boast about the law, saying, oh, God made this covenant. What is the law? it was an expression of the covenant that he made with the people. He made a covenant with the Israelites, and he said, and for you to abide by this covenant, these are the criteria. These are the stipulations that I give before you, so that you can be a part of that covenant. Any covenant comes with any agreement that you put, right? Any covenant that you make always comes with stipulations. So the law is an expression of that covenant that he made with them, and therefore they are very, very proud. God made a covenant with us, and therefore the law is given to us. But they don't feel responsible to obey the law. All that they can say is, we boast because he made a covenant and he gave us the law. You get this? And Paul is saying, you take pride in the law, but you are the ones who break the law. How dare you do it? And yet you are boastful. Are we just saying, I have this privilege of knowing God and having this covenant, but I will not walk in his ways. Those are mutually, exclusive. They are contradictory to each other. If I say I consider this a privilege, knowing him, if I say that I consider this a privilege, having the law, having this relationship, then I should take it as a responsibility that I obey him, walk in his ways. These two cannot, be contradictory to each other. I love God. I consider this a privilege. I'm so very boastful about this, yet I will not walk in his ways. And he is looking at these Jews and he says, this is exactly what you are doing. You are boasting, but you are breaking. As it is written, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. He is saying, why? Because it looks like you then who teach others, do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You who say that people should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? Do you who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who boast in the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? If you say that I have a relationship with God, honor him by obeying him. This is exactly what he is saying. You cannot even boast, because it's all because of the grace of God, and you still don't obey his law. And therefore, look at this. Circumcision has value if you observe the law. So he comes to the next one. He was talking about the law, right? Now he's talking about circumcision. What is this circumcision? It was a symbol that they had a covenant with God, and that covenant was everlasting, and it was a perpetual reminder to them that this is how it is, and it was a symbol of how permanent it is. And now these people want to break that, and Paul is saying circumcision has value if you observe the law, but if you break the law, you have become as though you had not been circumcised. So now they boast about the law, they boast about their relationship with God, they boast about their circumcision, when in fact they are breaking the law. So Paul is saying, how dare you do that? You are breaking the covenant with God. You are dishonoring him by not giving importance to the covenant that God made with you. Are we people like that? Just think about that. We call ourselves Christians. We take pride in saying, I follow the real, true God, or I have a relationship with him. But what about this part of it, the obedience part of it? Is it there? Otherwise, we need to recheck our lives. So then, if those who are not circumcised keep the law's requirements, will they not be regarded as though they were circumcised? Because they are boasting about circumcision, and Paul is saying you cannot boast about circumcision when you are breaking the law. When other people are fulfilling, obeying the law is not bad, let me tell you. The law is good. Some people think that the law is being done away with. The law has never been done away with, because the law is the embodiment of the character of God himself. Why the law? What is the law? The law is for the welfare of everybody, and that is the heart of God. You can't do away with the law. You understand this? Even though we know that we are saved by grace, but we can't do away with the law. We need to still talk about obedience and certain principles that we need to follow. Otherwise, we become anarchists. We say no law at all. A lot of people have this sticker, where it says what? No rules. I've seen that. No rules. We don't want to follow any law. That is anarchy. Right? You know what anarchy is? Anarchy is no discipline. It's utter chaos. Just think about that. For one day, there is not going to be any law at all. No law. Okay? You don't have to stop in traffic signals. Whether it is there or not, it doesn't make much of a difference for us, right? Just think about it. No law at all. No rules at all. It's going to be anarchy. Everyone is going to be affected. So the law is an embodiment. It's an expression of God himself, his character himself. And we need to understand that. So we're not saying no law. I'm living in the period of grace. Yeah, we know that. We are saved saved by grace, yes, but do you still follow the principles of the law, which are very, very important? He is saying, if you don't do, you have no right boasting about your relationship with God. You have no right boasting about this covenant that God made with you. You have no right boasting and saying, I am circumcised somehow. I have been set apart. I have been marked almost by God. You have no right, he says, right? So then he says, when everybody else, when people who do not know the requirements of the law, they keep the requirements of the law, will they not be regarded as though they were circumcised? The one who is not circumcised physically and yet obeys the law, verse number 27, will condemn you, who, even though you have the written code and circumcision, are a lawbreaker. So he is saying, this is how you need to be. You should not be a person who just calls yourself a Jew, but actually you need to understand the covenant that he made with you, the law he gave you. Verse number 28, a person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly, not a circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a person is a Jew who is on inwardly, and the circumcision is the circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from God. So he is saying, don't boast about yourself. Don't put yourself on a pedestal, and don't demand other people respect you because of this relationship that you have with you. You obey the law, you walk according to the principles, and God himself will praise you. You don't have to boast about yourself. God himself will praise you. Just look at the statement that he is making. What is boastfulness? When no one else is boasting, is praising you, you boast about yourself. You praise yourself. That is boastfulness. He says you don't have to do that if you walk by the principles. God himself will praise you. Beautiful. So may God help us that as we talk about Christianity as a religion, as we talk about, yes, the grace part of definitely is there. We are going to talk about that. But at the same time, are we walking by the principles that are given by God? Because they are the expression of his character, right? So when you walk by those, we actually are saying that I want to move closer to God, move more towards being like him. And verse chapter 3, he goes on and says, what advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? So look at those people. They were boastful first about the law, the covenant that God made with him, right? About God himself, about circumcision. They were boastful. So Paul said, no, you cannot boast because you and everybody else are the same. In fact, you are breaking the law, so other people are not breaking the law. In fact, they are more Jewish, right? Because they consider Jew to be something greater, so therefore he is attributing that word. They are Jews, they are circumcised, you are not, okay? And now they have this question. They look at this. Every epistle is like this. It's an interaction, it's a dialogue. They are saying, okay, but what advantage is it of being a Jew? I was born a Jew. Isn't there no advantage at all? See, after him speaking all of these things, they are looking at him and they are asking, what advantage is there of me being a Jew? Okay, it looks very similar to who we are. Anything that we do, we need to have a reason. Or rather, reason is good, but anything, especially when it comes to God, okay, why should I pray? Okay, why should I pray? This is the question. A lot of people ask. When I say, see, prayer is not just asking God because God already knows what you need and therefore he's already a good God. You don't have to make him good on all of those things. Then people ask, well, then why do I have to pray? Right? You understand this? And why do I have to come to church when we know that God is everywhere, right? And we know that we can even learn the Bible from YouTube, right? Yes? So why do we have to come to church? Anything and everything, we want a monetary, some kind of a reward. They are asking, I'm born a Jew. What is so special about me then? Or am I not special because I was born a Jew? Look at this. Okay, are you able to understand there? He is pointing to them and saying, you cannot boast. Everybody is equal. You cannot boast. In fact, you are breaking the law. They are not breaking the law. And he says, okay, let that be in one side. But I'm going to ask you a question. Is it not special that I'm already a Jew? Is it not meaning something? And he goes on saying, much in every way. This is beautiful. Very typical of Paul. Much in every way, meaning he is not nodding his head and saying, yes, definitely. He is actually being very sarcastic and he says, no. That is what he means when he says, yes, in every way. When they are saying, we are Jews, isn't that something special? And he gives a very emphatic no in this statement where he says, definitely. You understand this? When someone comes to you and says, or something so very least important, and they say, oh, I'm going to spend my whole life doing this, and you say, go ahead, you need to do that, definitely, right? That is being very sarcastic. They are asking him, isn't this special? I'm already a Jew. And he says, definitely. Right? It's very sarcastic. First of all, the Jews have been entrusted with the very words of God. So he is saying, you are the guardians of not the galaxy, you are the guardians of the scripture. Obviously, God gave only you the scriptures. You are the safekeepers of, will you not say anything? You are the safekeepers of the scriptures. He is not saying this in a very straight manner. He is making fun of them, where he says, you are the ones who are breaking the law. And yet you are saying, what advantage I have of being a Jew? So he says, oh, everywhere you are advantageous. You know what? God gave you, only you, the scriptures. And he is mocking them for not, for not obeying that. And he goes on, what if some are unfaithful? These are arguments that those people are giving, not Paul's argument. What if some people were unfaithful? Will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? So they are saying, okay, some Jews are being unfaithful to God. But that does not mean anything. The next statement is very, very interesting. Will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Let God be true and every human a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. So they are saying, unless some people are unfaithful, we cannot even know that God is faithful. You look at this argument. They are saying, unless some of us are unfaithful, how will you see? You are in a relationship and you want to test the other person's faithfulness. What do you have to do, it seems? You become unfaithful. And then you will know whether the other person is still faithful or not. Okay? How perverted is this? And they are saying, unless we sin, how will we know that he is faithful? And therefore, look at this. But if your unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us. What is their argument? We are being unrighteous so that God can be seen as righteous people. That is why we are unrighteous. We are sacrificing our righteousness so that we could show him as a righteous God. These people, they boasted about their law and God and everything. And Paul came to told them, see, this is not how it is. You have no right to boast. Then they said, okay, but we are Jews. Isn't there something, very, very special about that? And Paul is being very sarcastic and says, obviously, you are the keepers of the law, and therefore you are very, very important. But he also goes on to say, this is your argument where you are saying, even if we sin, we'll still be proud, because you know why? Because through our unfaithfulness, we have proved God's faithfulness. What perversion. If our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. He goes on. Certainly not. If that were so, how could God judge the world? Someone might argue, if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? If my unfaithfulness brings the faithfulness of God, why am I being judged? If I have not been unfaithful, will I have known that he is faithful? No. And then why am I being judged? Is what they are saying. See, they are trying to give all kinds of excuses to be what they are. I will boast, but I will not walk by the law. I am a Jew, I will still be proud of it, whether I walk by, whether I understand the concept or not. And I will even have the audacity to say that I sin so that he be glorified. You get it? I sin so that he be glorified. Right? And Paul is vehemently, he is kind of angry here. And he says, their condemnation is just. If you speak like this, see, look at this. Why not say, as some slanderously claim that we say, let us do evil that good may result. And some people even, attribute that to Paul. Even though they are the ones who are saying that, they are attributing that to Paul, where it's almost like they are saying, Paul is advocating, saying, do evil that good may result. And he is making this very strong statement where he says, their condemnation is just. These people will be punished. Beware. Do not boast about the covenant that God has made with you. It was not you who made the covenant. It was him who made the covenant. It was his initiative. It was his grace. You have no right boasting. And yet you break the law. You say, I'm a Jew. I was born a Jew. I have some advantage. And Paul says, no advantage at all. You are like everybody else. And they say, you know what? And even if we are sinful, even if you say, okay, we don't follow the law, let it be known that because we don't follow the law, somehow we are glorifying God and putting him on a pedestal. And he says, your condemnation is just. Look at this. Their boastfulness, their kind of shrewdness and cunningness in kind of giving excuses not to be righteous. Are you able to see this? And who are all these people? They are all there in the church. They are there in the church. He's writing to the Roman church. You get this? He's not talking to people out there in the world. He's talking to the Roman church. The people in the Roman church have got this. Okay, and most of them are Jews, it seems like this. And then he goes on, what shall we conclude then? Do we have any advantage? Not at all. This is the right answer. Earlier they asked the question, remember this? What advantage then is there in being a Jew? And he said, much in every way. As I told you, it was a sarcastic statement. Now he addresses that same question again. What shall we conclude then? Do we have any advantage? This is the straight answer he gives. Not at all. For we have already made the charge that Jews and the Gentiles alike are all under the power of sin. So he's saying everybody is equal, no Jew, no Gentile, and everybody is a sinner. Okay, so he says you cannot boast. So it's about being a Gentile or being a Jew. You cannot boast because everybody is a sinner. We are all equally sinful. And then he quotes a lot of passages from the Old Testament. He quotes from Psalms. He quotes from Ecclesiastes. He even quotes from Isaiah. Verse number 10 onwards. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and mystery mark their way, and the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. So these are different quotes from various passages from the Old Testament. He's put them all together to give this proof where? What's the proof? No one is righteous. So therefore, you cannot boast. You cannot boast about your righteousness, and you cannot give excuses saying, I'm unrighteous so that I can make God righteous. And then he goes on saying, now know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of sin. So he is making this beautiful statement, which kind of summarizes his whole concept about the law. Why is the law given? Or rather, what is the point of the law? He says, you cannot become righteous after having broken the law. The law, can you follow the law? Is the law too difficult to follow? The law which says don't kill, don't steal, don't give false witness, honor your father and mother, no idolatry, only one God. Too difficult? Okay, look at all the commandments, okay? Just each one at a time. Can we do it or not? Whether we do it or not, that is not my question. Can we do it or not? Do we have the capability of following the law or not? The law is very simple, right? The law is very simple. It's about the relationship with God and the relationship with His creation. He says, honor the Creator, be good to you, to my creation. Is it too hard? We as human beings don't do it. We make a choice. We made a choice not to do it. It's not too difficult a choice. You understand this? It's not that we cannot follow the law, but we have chosen not to follow the law. And that is why the story of Adam and Eve, where it was not a difficult decision that God gave before them, but it was a choice that they made to follow the decision, make a decision to break the law. You understand this? And once you have broken the law, you cannot go about becoming righteous by trying to fulfill the law. That is the point here. It is not that. You understand this? Once you have broken the law, now you cannot say, I am going to become righteous by following the law. What about the law that you broke then? You understand this? So the problem of the law is that it's not a problem exactly. Now they are saying we will become righteous by following the law. How did you become unrighteous? By breaking the law. Could you become righteous by following the law now? Because you have already become unrighteous. Yes? Do you understand this? This is a very important concept, okay? The law is not too difficult, but we have chosen as human beings to break the law, okay? It's our decision. Once we have broken the law, it could be one simple thing, but once you have broken, you become unrighteous. You cannot say, from now on, okay, one I have failed, 99 I will fulfill, but still one you have failed. You understand that you cannot mend it because you can't go back in time. You understand this? And now, because now they are talking about law as though it is going to give them righteousness. And now he says, no, that cannot be. Therefore, no one will become righteous in God's sight by the works of the law, because you've already broken the law. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. So now he says, how can you become righteous now that you have broken the law? He goes on saying, the righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no difference between Jews and Gentiles, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by His grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. God presented Christ as a sacrifice. He goes on talking about the atoning work of Jesus Christ. So what do we understand from this? He is talking about how we should not be. What is the weakness that we do have? In trying to become righteous. He says you cannot become righteous. All that you can do is accept that grace and through faith become righteous. So this is the gospel for us. This is the gospel. What is the good news? That, yes, we have messed up. Yes, we have failed in that one question, two question, whatever that is. Okay, all that thing, we have failed. Yes, we cannot redo it. We cannot make anything, we cannot make it positive, because whatever is done is already done. But I have the good news that I cannot make myself righteous, but through Jesus and the grace that He has shown by the redemptive work, that I will be able to receive it by faith. So how are we saved? We are saved by grace through faith. What is this faith? What is grace? Grace is, God is saying, unmerited favor. You don't deserve it, but I'm still willing to give it to you. You don't deserve it because you've broken the law. You don't deserve, to be righteous, because you have become unrighteous. But by my grace, I'm going to make it free to you. And that is not costing, that you cannot buy it. You don't deserve it. You can't buy it. It's free. But at the same time, how do you receive that? By faith. What faith? The faith that Jesus is God, and He has the authority to forgive my sins, and He also paid my price, because He is going to talk about that here, right? So this is the faith that we need to be having. So when we talk about righteousness, from now on, let's not talk about we need to be following the law. We cannot say, I abolish the law. I will not walk by the law. We need to, but we don't walk by the law so that we could become righteous, because we are already unrighteous. We say we have faith in Jesus as God, as Savior, so that we could be, we could have the righteousness of God in us, and then start walking in the principles that He had given us. Okay, you get this? So this is a very important thing. So we cannot just keep going and breaking the law. You cannot just continue to, go murder someone. You cannot go continue and commit adultery. You cannot do all of those things. You know why? Because He's made us righteous, and you now know what righteousness is, and you need to walk by those principles. So this is not just a teaching to the Jewish people. It's a teaching for each one of us. Because there is this problem. Either we become legalistic, where we say, I follow the law and I become righteous by the law. Or you become so very grace-minded, right? That's called the hyper-grace movement, right? Where we say, it's all the grace. It's grace, okay? No need to teach anything. No need to walk in any principles. I am saved by grace. I'm kept by grace. I survive by grace. Everything is by grace. This is one aspect of it. Okay, the other one is I need to do everything. I do this so that I can have eternal life. I praise God so that I can have eternal life. You cannot do anything to make that relationship happen. He made that relationship happen. We through faith have got it, and by His grace have got it. And we need to strike a balance here, where I say I am saved by grace through my faith, but I will still walk in His principles, which is basically His characteristics, so that I can continue in my righteousness. So we continue in our righteousness, right? After that bridge has been built in that rift, and whatever the problem has been mended, I walk in my righteousness, righteous by walking according to the principles that He has set forth before me. So there is no difference between the Jew and Gentile, because all of us have sinned. Now, through Jesus, this has been revealed. And from now on, everyone can continue, being righteous. So this is what He is saying. Just think about this, okay? And I think we'll close it for now.